excited to have Peter Callahan with us. I met Peter through, I believe Peter, correct me if I'm wrong, through the Leadership Northwest program at the Chamber of Commerce. And we actually talked about collaborating. I think we've done some like other stuff together at the Chamber. And Peter is a life coach. He also works at Copper Beach and does amazing stuff. And he is probably one of the most uplifting and motivating people I have ever met. Like if you hear him speak, you just leave there and you want to just kind of, you know, take on the world. So I thought it was really quite fitting to bring him in during all of this COVID stuff that we're all dealing with. So not everyone is like me. I embrace change, and COVID has really kind of given me this amazing opportunity to hunker down and work on big projects and accomplish so much. I am one of those, I've been hyper productive through all of this, but other people just are really overwhelmed. And one of the things that Peter said, like, I would love to do this, but I want to talk about self-compassion and what that all means. So Peter, welcome. I'm going to kind of stop the screen share here so we're all big faces now. There we go.
Yeah, nice.
So Peter, welcome. You're back in Connecticut, a little colder than it is here in Texas, but thanks for spending some time with us today. So
absolutely.
Talk to me a little bit about kind of what you're seeing with your clients, not only at Copper Beach, but in your private practice, about how they're sort of dealing with all of this new normal. I'm calling the new normal.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a pleasure to be here with you, Cindy. It's been a long time since those first Northwest Chamber interactions.
It has been.
The gift that even when you're in Texas, we still get to be together. It's great.
Yes. Thank you, Zoom.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's been a roller coaster, I think, right? So to say that we're seeing trends and patterns, maybe, I'm happy to share just some of that, but I think speaking to the self-compassion piece, what I've really noticed is how differently we're all sort of handling what's coming at us. And, despite the fact that we're all sharing in this global pandemic, we're also each experiencing it and relating to it really, really differently, right? There's some people who are busier than they've ever been in their entire lives. And there's others who are so unbelievably bored with nothing to do that they're going stir crazy and just really struggling with this space. And there's people like myself who have a little bit of both introvert and extrovert. So while I really crave socialization and having these kind of conversations, I also, like you, just love to be by myself and have lots of things that I don't always make time for, that I'm reading even more and getting outside a lot. But not everybody has that opportunity or that sort of setup in themselves. A lot of things are coming to the surface in, I think, stronger ways that we weren't necessarily aware of in ourselves. This is bringing up just such a brand new paradigm, is one word, right? This just brand new way of existing in the world that, is really creating a lot of unsettledness in most of us. I haven't talked to too many people who've said, yeah, no, I've been totally even, and I've been just cruising through, and watching the news really soothes me. That has not been a common refrain.
Well, I don't watch
I think it's always helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I stay pretty clear too, just staying updated online. But this is why I think it's always helpful for each of us, whenever we're getting together, to really genuinely share what we're going through and how this experience has been. So for me at the beginning, for about a week, that first week, right, it was like the second week of March or so, I just felt like kind of right in my sternum, this knot for a full week. I think this discomfort, and some of it was anxiety, certainly fear, and just this degree of uncertainty that I just really tried to spend as much time, and I'm grateful for some of these practices that I'd love to share with folks today, to be able to acknowledge that was going on for me and not be upset about it or resist it as much as possible. There were certainly times, but just to acknowledge and to recognize, like, this is hard, and just to be able to say that to ourselves, and then hopefully each other, right? The more we can take care of ourselves, the more we can be there for each other. But I'm curious to hear from you too, Cindy, if you're open to it. There's this amazing Facebook post for those of you who may follow Cindy, that I saw last night. What's been happening for you? What are you going through?
So for me, and this has been a real awakening for me, this has not been bad at all. I really didn't get any of the
Mhm.
anxiety, with few exceptions.
Oh,
My daughter was sick. She had COVID. She has now pretty much
oh, wow.
recovered and is back to work and everything. But the stress for me was the fact that she was several thousand miles away and I couldn't be there. And so there was a lot of like every day, how you feeling, telemed doctor appointments and all of that kind of stuff. But
Mm,
knock on wood, my family is okay. But I have a lot of friends and family who have had people die. People are in hospitals now. So that part of it is very stressful. But for me, I swear to God, I'm the one you want in the zombie apocalypse. I have a way of just emotionally sort of detaching from stuff and just going. So I don't watch the news all the time and I refuse to succumb to it. And that's just me. And I have found out though that I am far from normal in this. I have
right.
actually gotten a lot of pushback because I've been sort of the eternal optimist and like I'm not being realistic and I wasn't being sensitive to others. So that was a real awakening for me. And another reason why I wanted to bring you on because I I I feel like I've been really insensitive to others because I've been go, 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 because I have been so hyper productive. I am one of those freaky people that in all of this, it hasn't been bad for me. It really hasn't. And I don't wake up every day stressed out. And I'm living in a 25-foot RV. So it's not like I can escape to, another room. Like Dave is literally working right over here. We have the bed, we have a Murphy bed. He's sitting on the bed working, and I'm like right next to him doing my stuff. And it's been okay. It's really been
Mm,
okay. So I don't know if that is a faulty gene in my part or I have some secret superpower that has just blessed me with allowing me to do it. But that's kind of my perspective on it. It's like for me, I just want to find the sunshine in it all. And I just keep
yeah.
posting that over and over again, like, find the sunshine. And I'm a firm believer that there is a silver lining in everything. You just have to find it. So that's my take on
Yeah. I love it. I love it. What a
it.
gift. How great that is. I think it's certainly valuable to share. We like to say often at Copper Beach is you can't change the waves, but you can learn how to surf, right? So you're surfing the
Yeah.
waves of what's going on right now really skillfully. Can I ask, Cindy, have you always been such a good surfer in every situation you've encountered in your life?
I've always been really good at surviving. So if you read that post, you've read like I've been through a lot of crap, failed marriages, businesses, all that kind of stuff. And so I have learned how to survive. But the whole enlightening of the surfing really kind of has happened over the past, several years where I've really there's a blessing to be in your 50s and getting your later 50s. I think it's a time where you can really sit back and sort of say screw it of the, what people how people judge you. And I've really gotten to that point where I don't care. So I've been very open with sort of my failures and it's been liberating. I mean, from
Yeah.
stopping dyeing my hair and not wearing makeup all the time and just doing all of that stuff. So that's sort of been my journey through surfing, just embracing me and letting it go. And
Awesome.
I think
Yeah.
that was sort of a tipping point for me. So yes,
Wonderful.
always been
Yeah.
good at surviving. I always came out on the other side and I was always able to sort of emotionally shut off stuff for the most part and go, um,
Hmm.
but not in a positive way like I am now.
Right. Right. It's like that. I like the word healthy. Like, is what I'm doing a healthy approach to this experience, or is this maybe not serving me in the best way? And I can tell it's maybe adding to or building up. When we're pushing away or resisting things, that's that's a much different way than of sort of coming face to face with it, really having courage to understand what's happening so that we can then work through it. And again, we can talk through ways to do that a little bit more. And just what I'm hearing from you is that you survive. You were surviving. Surviving isn't surfing. Surviving is not drowning. So you were able to at least keep your head above the
Yes.
water,
Yeah.
which at the very least is all we're trying to do, right? It's like we're going to survive every challenge we come to until whatever the last one happens to be, and we just don't know when that is, right? I know
Yeah.
this is a lot of what underlies so much of our anxiety is just the fundamental fear that we're not going to be here forever. And are we making the most of this time that we do have?
Yeah.
And so it sounds like you've had this process of continuing to build your skills to be able to do that and really feel like you're doing what you're called to be doing, as opposed to what others think you should be, or being yanked around by
Yeah.
these societal expectations.
I mean,
Great.
surviving that whole, fight or flight stuff is mentally exhausting. I mean, it's like, whether it's money stress, which a lot of people are going through now, and businesses falling apart, and stressful relationships. I mean, all of this has brought a lot of that on, and surviving, although yes, if you can just keep in your mind that this too shall pass, and nothing lasts forever, good or bad, nothing lasts forever, right? The good stuff you want to hold on, you never want it to end, and the bad stuff, so good stuff seems to just go away quickly, and bad stuff seems to linger on, but it really is just finite time. And, again, for me, I mean, I remember all of those times that I was just surviving, and I realized that part of the angst was not believing as much in myself that that I would be fine, and that, I just needed to believe that I could do those things, be it, getting out of a bad marriage, or, sort of embarrassed about some failures. So, and I think there's a lot of anxiety now. Like, I was talking to somebody the other day who, essentially started a job and then lost it right away, and feels like a failure. Like, why did I not stay with my other job? And now he can't go back. And, should he start a business? So, and I seriously looked at him, and Heather's going to cringe because I've done this with her. It's like, you can truly have anything you want if you set your mind to it, and you just have to believe that, failing is okay. Failing is okay. So, again, a tipping point. Like, I wish I could go back and do 30 years over, but I can't.
Exactly. And to what degree do you look back and sort of have some clarity, like, wow, yeah, that terrible experience, that struggle has given me this. Now I have this perspective. I built this skill set.
Yeah.
It's all been additive. It just hasn't been easy, right? Mackenzie and I use this concept of different types of fun, right? So we call it type 1 and type 2 fun. So if this is helpful for folks maybe, but type 1 fun is pleasure, right? It's enjoyment. It's going to the beach with your family. It's playing a game with friends. It's, like right now I'm having fun. Type 2 fun, and maybe one of my favorite examples is Mackenzie, my wife, has run marathons, which is amazing. And I've done some halves. I don't keep up with the full 26 miles, but it's even in a half marathon, you're running for a while. And I know you've done some running too. It sucks. Like, it's really hard a lot of the time, right? It's kind of a crazy thing to do, to run for that long a period of time, right? So it's not exactly fun, and yet we're totally choosing to do it. No one made us sign up for this race. This isn't something we have to do. So for me, a lot of the times it's like, it's pretty challenging, it's struggling, it hurts, it's hard. And by the last mile, I'm thinking, I'm never running again. Like, I cannot wait to get there. This is it. It's like, I'll have accomplished this and forget it. And then I cross the finish line and catch my breath. I can't wait to do this again. How incredible. Right? Like, it was 10 minutes ago that I thought I was done running for the rest of my life. And that we kind of call this type 2 fun, right? Because as soon as you're done with it, as soon as you're looking back, the gratitude you have and the appreciation for that experience is incredible. And really, I think most things in life that are challenging or hard, we can have that sort of type 2 fun perspective on when we look back. Now, some things, we're losing family members and others. I don't know if that works as well, right? When it's that hard or serious, but a vast majority, we call that type 3 fun, like just no fun. There wasn't fun in there at all. But type 2 fun is really common and can be a really helpful thing to appreciate. Like, oh yeah, that was pretty amazing. And now I have this capacity. If we're just sitting on the couch all day and never struggling, we're gonna be dormant. We're gonna stay the same, and it's much less likely to feel fulfilling and to feel like that sense of growth. And it's the irony, right? We don't want to be struggling, and yet struggling is what helps us feel good.
Yeah, I mean, it is truly amazing. And trust me, you will do a marathon, because everybody always says that. It's like, I vowed I would never do a marathon, and then I did a marathon. because it's and the training is the daunting part, right? I mean, the race, you just
Right.
have the adrenaline and it gets you through. And yes, a mile before the finish line, regardless of what race you're doing, is just like, it's like it lasts forever. But when you finish, it's amazing. And it's like anything that you go out of your comfort zone to try. And
Yeah.
then when you do it, and it could be paying off debt, it could be, running a marathon, it could be launching a new business, it could be going back to school, it could be anything. But when you finish, that sense of accomplishment, regardless of how well you did, the fact that you said you were going to do it and then finish it, that's the type 2. It's the challenge, the accomplishment, and the pat on the back at the end.
Yeah. And then the growth and the new perspective you have on life. And I think this coming to self-compassion, which we talked about before, it can help us have a stronger sense of worth. Like, hey, look, I was able to, as a coach, half of my job is reminding people how great they are from what they've already done.
Yeah.
Holding up that, like, oh yeah, well, I can do that. Oh, I have been in this situation before. But it's remembering, right? And we practice mindfulness. One of the translations of the word mindfulness is to remember. We're simply remembering, and maybe from earlier in life, maybe from a deeper unconscious place, but subconscious place. But yeah, to just check in. How was that for me? And this is for right now, so kind of coming to the challenges we're working with now, maybe, is one of my favorite coaching questions is really, how is what I'm doing working for me? So if you think about this new routine that we're trying to create, however you're spreading out your activities, at the end of the day, or even, a couple times a day, don't do this every 5 minutes, it's going to be too much, but just slowing ourselves down a little bit and checking in with how is this working for me? So I've kind of fallen into this pattern, or I'm doing these things, or even I just did that at this time. I think we spend a lot of time, especially if we're trying to keep going with our jobs, if we're homeschooling our kids, if we're taking care of things that we weren't in the past, and family members, where our heads are down, we're just pushing through. Like, I'm just going to get through this. I'm just going to stick through. And in some ways we can think of that as resilience, but like we talked about before, it's an avoidant resilience, right? The way I really like to think about resilience is our ability to accept and be with what's going on, not to avoid it or wish it wasn't happening or simply charge through it. You talked about earlier, this too shall pass. And there's actually neuroscience now is speaking to some of the research has shown that an emotion, right? So something happens to us. This is sort of one of my favorite concepts. But something happens to us. We interpret it, right? It comes in through our eyes and ears and our senses. And we quickly, based on all of our other experiences, create a story. Like, here's what's happening. Here's why it's happening. This happens in, a millisecond. So we're like trying to, understand what's going on. And then an emotion comes up based on how we're perceiving that event. Two people can be standing next to each other and, watch a car accident or something. One can have significant trauma and the other person won't even really remember it 10 years later.
Yeah.
It could be, we have such different experiences. And the reality is the emotion that gets created in those moments only lasts by itself. This is what science has shown. An emotion can only last for 90 seconds by itself. So something happens, you create that story, the emotion happens. If your attention goes somewhere else, or if you're able to sort of let that go, it only takes less than 2 minutes. And I don't know about you, I have certainly had times where I'm angry at a family member or frustrated at what's happening around us. And that might last for a couple days. It's not at least a couple of hours. Right? But it's interesting and it's challenging for me to take that responsibility. Like, well, this could only have been 2 minutes. It's now 2 weeks. So I wonder how what I'm doing is working for me, and what else might I be willing to try? And that's, we can share these practices, but there's got to be desire, a willingness to say, like, all right, this is going on. It sucks. It's tough. What am I willing to do about it? If you're not willing to do anything and you want to just keep doing what you're doing, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
Again, then we come back to how's it working for us, right?
So, I mean, I totally agree. And it's not like my life is all unicorns and fairy dust now that I've had this huge enlightening about, who I am and where I want to go and all of that kind of stuff. I mean, there are days that things just, start going wrong and then it snowballs. I think now for me, I realize that I recognize those triggers, right? And I know, like, even last week, it was just one frustrating thing after another, and I was just cranky. It was like Easter. It was Easter. And I think what it was is like I was really missing being with my family. And we had this plan, this is so stupid, but we had this planned mimosa time with the kids. And typically we do that, like if I was hosting Easter, the kids would be over there like 9 in the morning. We would be drinking mimosas. I would be cooking. And it was like 10, 11 o'clock and the kids had their stuff going on and mimosa time wasn't happening quickly enough. And so I was like, I was starting to get really kind of pissy about it, and which is so trivial, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to go outside. Dave and I went for like a couple mile walk, came back, and just removing myself and sort of getting into, just doing some meditation around it and realizing what the source of my anxiety was. It had nothing to do with the fact that the kids weren't doing mimosas when I wanted them to. It was the fact, it was a bigger picture. And I think that's the secret, as soon as you realize where that angst is coming from and make a decision that you don't want to be in that space anymore, it's like, do I really want to ruin Easter because I can't be there? No, that's like, I didn't want to do that. So I shifted, we came back, we had mimosas. It was great. I spent some time with them virtually. And it was fine. But I think a lot of people, like once that negativity starts, they have a very hard time shifting. So, I mean, how do you coach people through that, Peter?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. That was a great lead in to one of the practices I wanted to bring. Thank you. It's beautiful. And two, as you were sharing there too, one thing that I was just curious about today, and you certainly don't need to share here, is, and I just always have curiosity, like what did you notice that it was at? Because I love your recognition. Like, it's not about mimosas. I could be over here drinking off screen the mimosa and come back. Like, it's not the drink itself, right? But what, if you're willing to, just what did you find as you investigated a little bit more deeply that was really frustrating you?
Well, I mean, I started to recognize that I was getting, like, I get passive aggressive when I get pissy. And like, my kids will tell you that 100%. And, we were texting back and forth and they were messaging. And finally I sent a text. I'm like, okay, fine. I'm going to go for a run. You guys have, do whatever. It's not a big deal. And then of course my daughter immediately recognized that I was like, okay, mom's upset. What's going on? And then after I did that, I'm like, oh my God, like I recognize, because my daughter is very good at calling me out on this whole passive aggressive thing. And she's the one that says that I'm Katrina, I'm a force, and not everybody's like me. She was part of my whole enlightening about who I am and why I need to be more empathetic. And Heather actually has been Heather's a client. She's the one that she's like, sometimes you are too much, Cindy. So, and I'm pretty open to that kind of criticism. But back to the mimosa thing, I mean, I just realized that I was going back to old patterns of being passive aggressive and then ruining something that doesn't need to be ruined. So it was the help of people like calling me out on that made me realize. I don't know if that's answering your question, but I realized I was going down the path of being passive aggressive and ruining a day that doesn't need to be ruined. And I also knew that the only way to snap out of that is I needed to go for a walk, get some exercise, clear my head, and not sit in my RV looking at an unopened bottle of champagne.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you. Yeah, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Yeah, and you really, the first word you started with was recognize, right? So you started to recognize what was happening, and it actually sounds like it could be and maybe we'll do this together for a moment if you're open to it, as a little bit more of a formal practice.
Sure.
And I just, depending on who's going to be sort of watching and checking in, just to sort of set the stage a little bit for some of the practices that I really find really helpful for myself and that we teach at Copper Beach are around, mindfulness and meditation. I know we've both referenced a couple times. Just want to acknowledge not everybody even knows what we're talking about when we say those words. So I just think it can be helpful to clarify that sort of the way I speak to mindfulness is this practice of being aware of what's happening right now. You said the word earlier, just recognizing, right? To recognize or to be aware. And there's more happening right now than we could ever possibly be aware of in the moment. So that's a piece of this. We get to choose where we put our attention, right? And my favorite reference or quote to this comes from, I read it in Stephen Covey, actually, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, but he was referencing back to Viktor Frankl, who wrote this. He was an Auschwitz concentration camp survivor in World War II, and he wrote the book Man's Search for Meaning. And this quote has just really helped me understand what we're talking about when we say mindfulness. What are we really talking about? And so what he noticed as he was helping people survive in the concentration camps, and the difference between those who made it and those who didn't, was often this exercise in this sort of awareness. And all he said was between stimulus and response. So between what happens, right, the stimulus, and the response, sort of how we react to what happens, there's a space. And in that space between what happens and what we do about it is our freedom to choose that response. Right? Something happens, and as you were saying before, you know, the mimosas aren't coming, and then what happens? Probably not a lot of space, passive aggression. That's the pattern, right? That is the pattern that you've created. Yep. One of my favorite examples for me is road rage. Right? So someone cuts me off, I'm not thinking, my arm goes up, so does my finger, and my blinker doesn't, and I get around them, and I'm, honking and trying to teach them a lesson. And when it was ironic because I first read this quote. I was actually listening to the audiobook. It was my first job out of college, and I just remember pulling the truck over. Just sort of this is like washing over me because I was really kind of a jerk. I say now I'm a recovering jerk, but I was having a tough time, and I just felt this. Wow, maybe this can help me be a little bit less of a jerk, right? If I can notice what happens and sort of try and exercise some of the space. This is exactly what we're doing in mindfulness. If you think of the space like a muscle, meditation is just exercising that muscle of space. So, for me, I pulled over, this washed over me. I'm like, oh, maybe I'm enlightened now. This should be good. So I pull back out, listen to a little bit more of the book. Somebody cuts me off really quickly. Boom, hand goes up, finger goes up, still no space. So awareness creates choice, but awareness doesn't necessarily just create change, right? We have to go to the gym and exercise. If you want to run a marathon, probably don't sign up and go run it tomorrow, right? You're going to need some exercise in order to create it. And that's what we're doing. And all this neuroscience and research now has been incredible to teach us. And it's really shown, like, we're actually, when we're doing these exercises, and I'll give you a little example of one, but really all we're doing is choosing something to put our attention on. Inevitably, our brain's going to wander off, as it always does. And that's not bad. That doesn't mean you're bad at meditating or focusing your mind. It just means your mind's doing what it's meant to be doing. It's thinking, it's doing its thing. So we want to bring kindness to ourselves when that happens. And the opportunity is just to notice, like, oh, wow, I'm over here wandering. Bring myself back to whatever I'm focusing on. And often we choose something like the breath or a physical sensation, but that space between stimulus and response, I think, could be a really helpful first piece to recognize, as you said, right? So we want to try and recognize that first piece. And I have some other, there's basically a very specific practice that goes in with this. So that's what I'm kind of leading up to here, is just our ability to be with that. And so what I would love to invite anyone who's sort of listening or checking in on now, just like Cindy did, maybe calling to mind some challenging experience. Maybe not going for the hardest possible one in life, right? We want to exercise and practice with light weights first. If we try and, lift our heaviest stuff, it's going to be hard, but just some challenging moment. Could have been today, yesterday, in the last week or month, but just starting to bring awareness to it. And if you're up for it, Cindy, we could just do a couple minute practice right now, just to give folks an example of how to do it.
Let's go.
All right, wonderful. So I'll just invite everybody, anytime that you want to do, and another word for meditation could be attention training or awareness training. I think Deloitte is now calling it dynamic mind training. So it's very, but doesn't have to be anything, right? You don't need any words or anything. And it's really helpful to be in a position that helps us sort of cultivate this, because it's not sleeping, right? We're not going to sleep. We're not necessarily resting. It's actually, and people often say, like, oh, I'm just letting my mind go. It's actually kind of the opposite of that, right? We're trying to bring ourselves as awake and aware as possible. So it takes a little effort, right? It's not necessarily easy. And just one of the other most important pieces here is to not just follow along with whatever guidance I give if you're feeling some strong discomfort, especially if it's feeling unsafe, right? Because what we're doing is we're going to slow ourselves down a little bit. And for a lot of us, we're not having a lot of opportunity to do this at all. And when we do, sometimes it can bring up some pretty dark or scary or hard things, which is okay, right? We want to sort of be okay with working with discomfort, but not too much discomfort, right? Especially if there's trauma so I just want to ask everyone to make sure you check in with yourself first. Let yourself be the leader. I'm just making suggestions and invitations, but for you, just check in and make sure that whatever you're doing feels safe enough, right? And if it's not feeling safe, if you have closed your eyes, feel free to open them. If you want to get up and walk away, pause, just making sure you're taking care of yourself too. And we always make this offer at Copper Beach too. So myself and others are always happy to have a conversation. If things come up and are tough, I just want to make sure you feel like you've got support as well. So just my caveat there.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you. So to start, I'm just going to ask everyone to find a position that's both alert and relaxed. A little bit of a paradox, both kind of upright, but not too stiff, right? If we're up and stiff, that's not going to help us here. So I want to be, alert, but relaxed, and not too relaxed, because then we just kind of fall asleep, right? So it's kind of this in-between space. Now you can do this standing up, lying down, whatever's helpful for you. And to start, I will just invite everyone, I know we're on the screen right now looking at each other, but maybe just taking a moment just to lower our gaze, even just kind of resting our eyes, again, if that feels safe for you. And I love to start by just taking a moment to not do anything. So yes, we're going to meditate and train our attention. That's all great, but it could be such a gift just to give ourselves permission to not do anything for a moment. Right? Spend so much of our day doing and acting. Just letting ourselves be right where we are. And again, noticing if this is really uncomfortable for you, or if it's really comfortable, whatever comes up is okay. And a great way to begin a little bit more of a formal practice here could be to just check in with our body. If you're like me, a few years ago, you may not be familiar that there actually is something beneath your neck. There's this whole physical entity carrying you around and keeping you alive all day. And maybe just feeling like the weight of your body pressing against the chair or the floor. You would be sending some gratitude to it for keeping you going, taking in that oxygen, digesting those nutrients. And even if you've got, any sort of disability or physical challenge, there's still so much that your body's doing for you. So much to bring attention to and be grateful for. And just to keep this quick, because we'll keep our conversation going, I just want to give you a sort of felt example of what this could be like, right? So just see if you can feel maybe the weight of your hands. They could be resting on the chair, on your lap. Maybe the weight of your body pressing against the chair. Chair sort of holding you up. Maybe you're laying down and it's your whole body against the floor. If you're sitting or standing, you can also bring your attention down to the bottom of your feet. And for many of us, this can be one of the most helpful places to use in our practice, especially if our breath is not our favorite. For some folks, the breath is a wonderful anchor or focal point. For others, especially if you've got asthma or breathing challenges that may not be supportive of you, especially early on. But just seeing if you can notice your feet, the sensation of pressure, connection to the ground underneath. Noticing whatever's there. Might be temperature, cool or warm, moisture or dryness. Might be tingling or maybe very little sensation. Not needing to do anything, but just noticing whatever's going on down there. Acknowledging wherever your mind might be bouncing away to. And again, not making that bad. It's totally okay. What I like to do sometimes is just thank my brain. Thank you. Yes, lunch is coming soon. Right now, we're just paying attention to the feet. Promise we'll eat lunch after. And each time it wanders, just acknowledging, being kind to yourself, and just bringing your attention back. Over and over again. Maybe slowly begin to come back together here. Maybe just seeing if you can notice 3 breaths. Again, if this feels safe for you. Maybe checking in with the whole in-breath. Whole out-breath. Slowly coming back to the space you're in. It can be important here too, not to rush. Right? So maybe moving your fingers and toes, slowly blinking your eyes. And now if we can, we sort of want to continue maybe this slightly more calm and regulated, maybe that was really activating and uncomfortable and you're just grateful to be back. But either way, we don't want to just rush right back into, I'm not just going to open up my email right now or go do something. And if we can reintegrate even with just 1 or 2 minutes after a little bit of practice, that can really help this be more continuing throughout the day, right? Just trying to bring a little continuity to it and being gentle and kind to yourself, because that might have been the weirdest, strangest thing you've ever done. I couldn't, when Cindy and I met 6-7 years ago, I could not imagine myself guiding and leading these practices. The first time I was in a suit in front of a room of 100 people doing this, I thought I was going to explode from professional embarrassment. But for me, it's just been so incredible. And one thing I'd love to just ask to reflect on, and maybe we can hear from both Cindy and Heather, if you're willing, is just what came up for you right now? What was the experience like? Again, doesn't need to be good or bad, just this opportunity to get to know ourselves a little bit better and understand how we're relating to this moment, this larger crisis, and whatever else is just coming up. Whatever is coming up is an opportunity for us to learn a little bit more about ourselves and understand. So if you're both willing, love to hear from you.
So, for me, my brain never shuts off. Like I'm a constant, like it's constantly going. So I find it very hard to stop. And because I've sort of been in this space of hyper productivity, like doing these kind of practices are really critical because I've got to slow down, especially, you know, I've been writing a lot and creating and doing all of this stuff, and it's good, but it's also hard because you need to just shut your brain off sometimes. So for me, that's kind of where I was for the past 2 minutes. I was not thinking about work or the fact that I was even doing this with you. I was just kind of in my space and just shutting my brain off a little bit. So that's where
Wow.
I was.
Incredible. That's amazing that you're able to shut your brain off. I don't know if I've even achieved that for more than one breath at a time. You know, that's usually the amount of time. And because I just like to acknowledge, for many of us, it's really hard to even consider that. So, and that's not necessarily the goal. One of the analogies that I find helpful is the washing machine. So if your brain is like a washing machine, you know, like front loader, and it's just spinning and spinning around, you don't necessarily need to stop your brain. If you can, and you're not alone, others have capability to do that today. It's wonderful. But if you're more like me and that just doesn't seem quite possible, really the goal is just to be able to step back so that we can watch the washing machine. We want to be able to see the thoughts, but not let them toss us around in there with them, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
And if you're
no,
able to do what you're doing,
that
that's
makes
great.
complete sense. So, yeah, I agree. So you can't really shut your brain off. For me, it's kind of just maybe slowing it down a little bit, like you said, and
Absolutely.
helping just focus. I mean, I have a really hard time focusing. Um, you know, ADD brain is just all over the place. And so when I have these opportunities to really be creative, it sort of sends my brain into overdrive, if that makes sense. So if I don't like get out and stop and just do something else and do these practices, it's really hard. Then I become less productive and it's frustrating.
Yeah.
Heather, do you want to share or no? You don't have to if you don't want to.
Oh, yeah, sure. Well, you know, I meditate regularly, so this is just like a good break. You know, midday break, which was very helpful. I stopped the video before because my 3 kids are, you know, they're home. The dog needed to go out, peed on the carpet. Like the kids were like, I was like, oh. So this is perfect for me. So it was just kind of like, you know, just let it go, whatever. I needed to be back like in my body right here. And just, yeah, take a breath and relax and be grateful for right now. You know, just focus on, yeah, just like what I'm doing and not worry about like everything else. And so it was very good. Yeah.
Yeah, Heather's been a very positive influence on me when it comes to this stuff of just kind of, you know, the meditating and stopping the madness for a little bit. So she's kind of my shero in that. It's very good about this is my time to do it. And those are kind of some of the skills that I've learned. And I think people that are doing better during all of this have learned some of those coping skills. You know, life is crazy right now. Like Heather, you have 3 kids at home right now. Like I can't imagine that. I can't imagine.
They're actually, it's pretty good because they're all at the moment preoccupied with school, you know, but they start picking on each other a little bit. And but you know, we said yesterday, like, I'm glad that we have each other, and I feel bad for people that are kind of alone. So so it's been okay. Like it's been okay. And kind of like you, like I'm not that I'm happy that this is happening, but it's fine for me, like for the most part. You know, it's like kind of grateful for the break.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Wonderful.
Because I don't have to.
It's so good to focus on those.
Yeah. It's okay. Like I don't know. I'm kind of enjoying being home. I mean, it's like lonely and stuff at times, or you miss people and things and activities. But it's allowed me to be able to like focus and be focus. You know, on just, you know, well, my schoolwork and coursework and stuff, and just trying to get stuff done. So for
Yeah.
me, it's kind of a gift. I mean, I know for many other people it's not, but for me, it's okay. So
Yeah. I think we're kind of soul sisters in that hard to focus thing. And
yeah,
for me, it's truly been a blessing too. It really has. It really
yeah,
has.
I feel bad. I know that it's not for everybody,
Mm,
but for me personally, yeah, it's been okay. So
good. Yay.
yeah.
So what about you, Peter? We're going to push back and ask about like, what your experience was during
Yeah, of
your little
course.
downtime.
Yeah, I mean, I think similar to both of you, I kind of shared that first week just having a lot of anxiety, and I felt like it was almost like just empathy and compassion for the amount of suffering that so many people were experiencing and are and will continue to be. So I think part of I've been doing so much of this work, and I do a lot of what's called it's kind of a sappy name in many ways, but loving kindness meditation. Right, so it's kind of just sending good vibes to people. I try and start with myself, by far the hardest for me, and then people I care about, and neutral people, and then people that maybe I have the hardest time with, and then I send it out to the whole world and try and picture the globe of humans. And doing that practice for a few years now has made me, it's paradoxical because it's made me kinder to myself and others, but it's also made me more sensitive. I'm kind of
Yeah.
this recovering jerk who didn't care about people, and kind of like what you were saying before, Cindy, I was really able to just disconnect and be like, oh, yeah, people are suffering. Guess they didn't prepare as well as I did. Not acknowledging all the privilege that I have and the opportunities I've been given, and just realizing how similar we all are. And if we were born in their body, like how different would we maybe be if we were in that scenario? So just having that compassion, I think, was a lot for me to hold. It was really a lot for me to hold. And we talked about before this conversation, actually, I think one of the things that's helped me the most, both being with that and trying to acknowledge, I mean, I really spent a week trying to acknowledge and be with that. It didn't just go away immediately. It took a lot of time, and I don't know exactly what helped finalize, but I think it was just the continuously trying not to turn away from it. And since then, what's really helped me is joining conversations like these and finding whatever large or really small ways that I can be of service and help others, right? So I take care of myself so that I have the most capacity possible to show up and be there for others. And it's kind of this irony in some way, the paradox of I think some of this work is that the more we care for ourselves, the more capacity we have to care for others. So many of us are just giving and serving and raising our kids and taking care of our clients and customers and communities, and let alone healthcare workers. I think they're giving so much, but if we're not filling ourselves up enough, the old oxygen mask analogy, right? Put on your own oxygen mask before. I don't even think you have to do it before necessarily, but also, right? If you're not caring for yourself, you're really sacrificing the amount of care you can give to others. So can we, be honest enough with ourselves to say, this isn't really working for me? And yes, I'm helping everyone, but am I doing my best in helping everyone because I'm exhausted? I'm not getting enough sleep. I haven't gone for a walk in 2 weeks. Those things, just like you were saying before, Cindy, like you went out and went for a stroll, and it really brought you back in to be with your family and be present with others. And it's wonderful honesty and awareness that you can do that for yourself. And I just want to give
Yeah.
everyone permission. That's okay. And you're actually helping them by helping you. If you're out for, the entire day, or if that's probably not going to help everyone, but there's some balance. And most of us are way too far on this side of like, yep, I'm ignoring my needs and just caring for others. It's sacrificing the help you're giving. It's hard.
Yeah. And like you said, like we have zero control over the situation, but we have 100% control over how we react to the situation. And, when you wake up and you think the day is going to be awful, it's going to be awful, right? And if you wake up and you're like, okay, there's all this stuff going on. How do I want to react to the situation? Where is the sunshine? Which is my thing right now. It's like I'm finding the sunshine. What is the sunshine I'm going to find today? What am I going to do for me? Like Dave right now, he's having a lot of issues with his sciatic nerve. So he's not like going out and running with me, but the old me would have been like, oh, well, he's not going to go, so I'm not going to go. But I'm just, when I need to take a break, I've got to get out and just go do something. And I'm really trying to honor that. I'm not perfect, but if I don't take care of me, everything falls apart. Everything falls apart. So happy me, happy customers, happy, but it goes beyond that. Like, I'm, going back to people that have lost jobs and trying to reinvent themselves and all of that. It's like when you adopt that attitude of even serving others, but more importantly, when you adopt the attitude that, this too shall pass, and what can I do today to change something in my life that I don't like? And it doesn't have to be grand. It could be seriously, you know, get out of bed or get out of your pajamas today. Maybe that's a big step. I mean, I put jewelry on today. Like, it's the first time I've done that in a very long time. I'm like, you know what? I'm kind of sick of, being in my pajamas 24/7. So, or my running clothes. Those are my two outfits, So I was like, I'm going to put clothes on today. It's simple things. Like, I mean, talk to me a little bit about that, Peter. I mean, that's how I sort of deal with my, like when I sense things are kind of getting off kilter. It's like, okay, what's the one thing that I can do right now to make me feel better?
One of my favorite phrases for this, Cindy, is, I often clients often ask, where do I start? Like, how do I get this going? We've created these lists and these action plans. It's overwhelming. Anywhere. Start anywhere. Right? I love the phrase, move a muscle, change a thought. So if you're stuck in this pattern or this loop, just moving one muscle, doing something gives you a much better chance than of just perpetually repeating that cycle over and over again. So that's one way to do it. And I love your sort of acknowledgement of, like, you're trying to notice, like, wow, I really think I need to do something different right now. Like, what I'm doing isn't working for me. I'm trying to focus. I'm trying to write this. I'm trying to take it, but it's not working. And if it's helpful, some of the research and science, and this actually comes up in Daniel Pink's new book, When. And I remember actually now that's just reminded me, back in leadership days, I think maybe you gave me the book Start With Why, or you at least recommended Simon Sinek, Start With Why. And that kind of comes in here too. Daniel Pink talks a lot about having that clear, like, purpose of why you're doing something. But what the research really says is that the top performers, I know we both value accomplishment, right, and productivity, and some of the top achievers, when they studied them over years and years, sort of their daily habits and how they structure their time, what they found is that those people who have achieved the most, like the Albert Einsteins and the really Mark Twain's, Thomas Edison, even, like the most creative, sort of inventive folks, spent an average, and this is obviously over a lot of data, of 52 minutes working and 17 minutes taking a break. 52 and then 52 on, 17 off. Now, obviously, there's a wide range within that might work best for each one of us. But personally, I was shocked that you're supposed to take 17 minutes. Like, maybe I'll go to the bathroom for 1 minute and get right back to it, fill up my water. But 17 minutes and that can be a lot of different things they spoke to. Some people went for a walk, some would call a friend, some would just get a bite to eat, whatever, something, just doing something different and then bringing yourself back can actually really help maintain that. So just, because I think it's helpful sometimes to have a tangible, like, what does balance look like? And again, those minutes aren't going to be exact for each of us, but it's not 4 hours of emails and then 5 minutes of lunch. That's probably not the balance. So,
no.
So we're trying things out for
amazing.
ourselves.
I had a coach that I worked with, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, and I was constantly feeling overwhelmed, like I wasn't getting any work done. And, I would go into our project management software and there was constantly all this stuff in the red. And I would get so overwhelmed that I'd get frozen. And that was her trick to me. That was our plan. I work for 45 minutes, I take 15 minutes off. 45 minutes. And it was a game changer because then I felt accomplished. I'm like, okay, what am I doing in 45 minutes? Check, So I broke down all of my tasks into little pieces, and I still do that today. Like, I know for me, it's rare unless I'm really engrossed in something that I love, but who gets to do something that they love 24/7? There's always stuff that we don't like to do. But if I say I have to sit and do 4 hours of stuff to get my taxes ready, hell no, 45 minutes, 15, 40. So that's, Now I know where that came from. You know, she must have learned
Beautiful.
that trick and, you know, from science. So yeah, game changer.
Well, and many people learn it from their own experience, right? They try and experiment. I think one of the keys with all this stuff is experimentation. Let's keep trying different. That's why I love the question, how is what you're doing working for you? Well, not great. Let's try something else. What can we do? And I think what's really helpful about working with somebody else who's not like your spouse or close friend is that sort of outside perspective, right? Of like bringing in a consultant or talking with a coach, whatever it might be, someone who can kind of hold up the mirror with compassion and without judgment and say like, what I'm hearing from you is this isn't working for you. And, you know, there's some fear around doing something different because you're afraid it might be worse, right? It's the devil we know kind of thing. But if we're in it together, and again, we can reference back like, wait, you're probably not doing all the same things that you used to right now in life. Like if you're honest with yourself, like, oh yeah, no, I did used to get up at noon in college. I guess I don't do that anymore. Like things have changed. Like you have adjusted. Like, and you can continue to do so, right? And that's what neuroscience is showing us. Like our brains won't stop learning ever, right? We're always able to do it. And it goes back to the space between stimulus and response. For me, driving, no space, like that road rage, right? There's so little space. But even 10 years ago, when I first was starting all these practices, there were some things where I had lots of space, and I was just, oh, I must be Buddha. Like this, this doesn't bother me at all that this person's, yelling at their neighbor or something like that. Like, oh, that's cool. We all have stuff that we're really calm about and that we're super activated about. And each time we're activated, it's an opportunity or uncomfortable or feeling unproductive. Oh, all right, cool. Must be something here to investigate, right? And to check in with. And again, just come back to see if you can feel your feet. See if you can feel them against the floor. Take a breath and just ask yourself, like, oh, what do I need right now? What else am I willing to try or do? And just start anywhere. Just try something, right?
Great tips, Peter. Well, I can't believe it's already been like an hour chatting about this. I could
Wow.
I could talk forever because you're so much fun. And Heather, thanks for joining as always. It's great to see your
Great to have
smiling,
you.
lovely face.
Thank you.
Peter, any kind of last words? And then please share some information about your private coaching practice, how people can work with you, Copper Beach, what's happening over there with the amazing team. And, even are you guys doing stuff during COVID now? And I'll let you chat.
Yeah, totally. Thank you. I really appreciate it, Cindy. Yeah. So I think my favorite offer right now is just because it's daily and free, is that it's that practice that we did, and we do many varieties, but actually every day at 12:30 Eastern right now at Copper Beach, on our website, it's just copperbeachinstitute.org, we're offering a free 30-minute meditation session, live guided session. So every single day, we've been doing this since the middle of March. We're hoping to do it forever now because it's the community is incredible. We're getting 50 to 100 people on most of these calls, and it's Zoom. You can share or not share if you want to, and it's free. So you just hop on, and folks can donate if you can. We understand a lot of people are not in that position right now, and it's just such a gift to get to. We do a little bit of practice, we do some sharing, one or two concepts, but it's really a gift to get to do. So I think that's my biggest offer, just because it's free.
That's cool.
Yeah, and then otherwise, my own practice is called Fresh Perspectives. My email's way too long, so I'll just give you fp-ct.org is the short version of my website. You can just email me right from there.
Actually, bear with me a second.
Sure.
I believe I have all of this stuff right here to connect with Peter. There you are.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, and that's my email down there. It's far too long, so no dictating, but yes, exactly. Exactly. Feel free to call or text. It's fine as well. But yeah, thank you so much, Cindy. It's really a gift to get to do together and continue to sort of share just our own imperfect journeys to, and like you said before, success, it means something different for all of us. So that's so much of just defining, like, what does a great day look and feel like for me? And we can maybe start to reframe, like, oh, it doesn't have to have $10 million. That would help, but it's not necessary. Like, what is this for me? So really a gift to get to do. Thank you so much. Thank you to Jen too for all you're doing, and Heather for being here.
Well, thanks for joining us. And I guess my parting words are, just kind of give yourself a break in all of this and stop comparing yourself to others. Just because there's people like me and Heather who are like kind of enjoying this downtime, we recognize that, you know, other people aren't that way, and that's okay. And, you know, I love the moms that are coming on going, yep, my kid's eating macaroni and cheese for breakfast, and I am doing work in my car, and, you know, the house is a disaster, and I don't even know what day it is. And I'm like, you're the perfect mom right now. Like, it's okay. It's like, it's just okay. So for everybody that's listening, I'll have all of Peter's stuff. We'll put it in the Thursday group. So you'll have all that connection. I'll sort of do a write-up. And if you want to, you know, connect with Copper Beach, they do amazing stuff there. I'm so checking out the meditation. That's amazing. And Peter, you're, you know, you're an amazing coach. So I've loved watching your journey. And be safe, everybody. And call me if you need me. Have a great day,
Take care.
everybody. Take care,
Thank you.
Heather. Let's catch up
All right,
soon.
thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.